This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, June 2nd, 2006, and this is episode number 108 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hochberg from mgmstudios.org. On today's panel is Sir Mix-a-Lot's protege, Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Outstanding. And Mr. Dismeets 2006 is also here. Mike Scopa, trip planning guru from mouseplanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
This is Captain Nemo speaking. Welcome aboard the Nautilus.
And coming out of retirement for one more season is Len Testa of touringplans.com. Welcome, Len.
It's value season, by the way. How's it going, Matt?
And with no nifty intro, we have our special guest today, Sam Genoway, who is an urban planner that has worked on almost 40 projects around Walt Disney World. Welcome, Sam.
Aloha.
And I think you stole who uses that intro?
Steve Seifert?
Yeah, Steve Seifert. It's all right. Don't worry about it, Sam.
Or Magnum PI. One of the two.
Well, today we're talking with Sam, being an urban designer, and not just because we need an urban designer on the show, as many of our listeners have pointed out to us over the years.
Both listeners.
Right. But actually, Sam, you've worked on projects at Walt Disney World. Before we go over there, let's first explain to our listeners and to myself, because I have no clue, what is urban design, and what does it do?
Sure. To be clear, I've not personally worked on projects at Walt Disney World. The firm that I work for, EDA, has done many, many projects, not only for Walt Disney World, but for Tokyo Disney, as well as Hong Kong Disney as well, mostly the landscape architecture for it. I'm an urban planner and designer. I'm a policy planner. What I would describe urban design is it's the process of creating places and policies that lead to environments that are alive, they respect people, they have meaning, and ultimately they exceed in their performance to the relationship of their purpose. Those are those places that you walk into and you immediately feel good and comfortable and a part of that place. And it's a very tricky job, but that we love doing it, and that's what we do around here.
All right, so why don't you explain to our listeners then, the most common form of urban design is obviously in a city. So why don't you explain, let's start out, what's good urban design in a city?
Well, there's a woman whose name is Jane Jacobs, who just recently passed away, who wrote a milestone book in 1961, and she describes good cities that function. She uses the term messy vitality, that there's an action, there's something that's going on all the time. There's eyes on the street. It feels alive. And that's very different than doing a theme park design. In theme park design, you want to actually go quite the opposite of that, and you want to take out that messiness. You want to make sure that everything fits together very neatly in the story so that you're part of that story. So with urban design, you really want to try to create good environments that function well, that allow people to feel a part of those different places, and then also are able to evolve over time. They're also very organic as well.
That's interesting because I used to live in a I used to live in a historic district of Greensboro, where in a town that I lived, and it was created before zoning laws. So we would have residential communities, for example, directly across the street from churches, and like 3 streets down from commercial buildings. Whereas, and I loved it because you could walk anywhere from my house.
That's right.
Which was fantastic. Loved the neighborhood. Just absolutely loved it. But now, of course, I live in the suburbs, because I'm a little bit older, and there are no sidewalks, and it's a 20-minute drive to get anywhere. And I think this, what you're saying about the messy vitality is sort of like the where I used to live, where people used to get out, walk around, and see their neighbors. And yeah, you might pass the commercial place. Actually, one of the commercial places that I used to pass was a bulk helium dealer, and I always wondered what happened if that place ever exploded, but it's a really different story.
You all have very high-pitched voices.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna blow! So yeah, I think that's the sort of messy vitality thing that you were talking about, where it's not rigorously planned, antiseptic sort of looking place. It was, or aseptic looking. It's all sort of a mishmash of things, and it all just works.
Well, that's a good observation. I'm a big advocate of a thing called collaborative planning, and our business is going through a real revolution over the last 15 to 20 years.
It's all people talk about, right?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about this concept of new urbanism, for instance, or smart growth, and there's a lot of other little buzzword names for it. But it's how can we return to that messy vitality? How can we create those places that really touch people's hearts, their emotions, more than the let's put the houses over here and the stores over there and the gas station over there and your job's way over there and you always have to get into your car. And what I do and what our firm focuses on is a thing called collaborative planning, and we assume from the get-go that people just like you know in your hearts and heads what really makes for great places. The hard part is just getting you to articulate it clearly for us so we can put them down in drawings and actually build the things.
Well, when you were talking before, Sam, about how the differences between planning for a city versus planning for a theme park, it reminded me a lot of what Walt Disney envisioned for his parks, and of course he wanted the experience to be the same for every single guest that comes to the park, which is why there are audio animatronics and not actors in the parks, because he wanted everyone to have that same kind of experience. And go ahead, Sam.
One of the things that really struck me, and if you take it from the Walt Disney Presents shows, the old TV shows, he actually physically lays it out. If you really think about every TV show that he ever did, it always started with Walt in his office, usually opening up a gigantic book to the first page of that to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom and frankly, all the parks, with the exception of the second door at Epcot, do the same thing. Everybody experiences the same thing at the same time, right at the very beginning, before they go off on their own individual adventures. So that's one thing I found fascinating, is he took this concept of storytelling on a TV show and actually laid it out physically on the ground as well.
Well, why don't we go through some of the theme parks here, Sam, and you can just kind of give us some examples of some good urban planning that's been implemented at Walt Disney World.
Sure. Well, I have to express my bias, being a Southern Californian all my life. I have been to Walt Disney World only 4 times, but I've been to Disneyland a few hundred times, so sometimes I may refer to that. We'll start with the Magic Kingdom. Of course, a lot of people know the idea is that it's like going to a theater, and that you walk through the first space is the lobby where you buy your tickets, and then you go through the red carpet. That's the little place that's in front of the plants and in front of the train station, and that there's no way of actually capturing a true view until you go through the tunnels. And when you think about it, good designers use things called deflected views and view terminuses to kind of create a sense of space. Maybe a good way of describing it is you start really good urban design is creating outdoor rooms. And like a good room in a house, you've got a good floor below you. That's the street, that's the pavers, that's the sidewalks. You've got walls. Those are the buildings that enclose the space and define the area that you're in. And then you've got the roof, which is the sky. And you want to make sure that you've got you want to have a good room. So as you go through the Magic Kingdom and you go through the tunnel, you'll notice that you can't see anything when you go through the tunnels. The tunnels were designed specifically to be just deep enough where as you enter the tunnel, you can't capture a full view of Main Street, USA until you've passed through the tunnel. And even then, you still can't see the castle first. You have to move your way towards the middle. And then there's what we would call a view terminus. I like Walt's term, the weenie, better, which is the castle at the end.
Yeah, you got to play to your audience. We're going to go with weenie here.
And actually, the guy who's the head of the Congress for the New Urbanism, who runs around with politicians, uses pictures of Walt Disney World to show this is what cityscapes should look like. This is a view terminus.
So let me ask you this question, Sam. So when you walk through the tunnel in the Magic Kingdom, it's like a cul-de-sac. It's a circle, right?
That's right.
So you're saying the circle's not an accident? The fact that
no, it's not an accident.
Oh.
It's a deflected view. It is designed so that you pass from the lobby, which is outside where the red bricks are, through the tunnel like the curtain is opening up, and then you get the reveal on the other side. And that puts you into Town Square, and so you're comfortably within that environment. And then once you're in Town Square, you look down the street, and you've got this wonderful old-fashioned looking American main street, and then there's a giant castle at the very end of it, and that makes your head go, huh. I want to go see what that weird little castle is. And so that encourages you to walk much further than you would ever walk in your real life. We tend to use the rule of thumb that people will not walk more than 650 feet to go from their car to any particular business. But people are willing to walk more than a quarter of a mile to get from one end of Main Street to the other with no problem at all.
650 feet. They wouldn't last 2 steps in our touring plan.
That's right.
That's right. Oh well. Good luck. So that's okay. So you get to the central hub. So
Right.
as you walk down the street, before you get to the castle, you get to the central hub. So what does the central hub do in the Magic Kingdom?
Well,
From
the
a
idea of
design perspective.
the idea of the central hub is, well, avoid a thing that he called museum feet. And that is that when you go to a museum, you kind of wander around endless hallways. You never quite exactly know where you're at, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted. And the idea of the hub was to try to eliminate museum feet by giving a central location in which you can go to the various lands. And if you really think back in the old days, now I'm not exactly sure about this in Walt Disney World, but definitely in Disneyland, you had to always go from the hub to the land that you're in and then back to the hub before you go off into another land. And over the years,
critter countries like that in Disneyland, right?
Right. So over the years, they've created some connections so that you don't always have to go back through the hub. But what it really does in a physical sense is it reduces your amount of walking by a huge percentage. And although people will walk more at the theme parks than they will in their regular days, will walk less than they would have if it wasn't this well designed.
That's great. Go ahead, Lon.
So you're at the central hub, and I just want to pick one more land from the Magic Kingdom real quick. You walk, and then we can move on to the other theme parks too. But suppose we're going from the central hub, we make a left, and we head over to Adventureland. Now, one of the things I've always loved about Adventureland is the entrance to Adventureland. You've got sort of the wooden bridge, you've got the music, you've got the flames. I mean, again, I'm guessing that's not a coincidence there. But why don't you tell us what sort of design elements Disney intentionally puts or is using there, and what they're supposed to mean?
Well, we'll take it through the idea of the weenie, because they're all over the place. You've got the first big weenie is the castle at the end, okay? Tomorrowland, you're looking at the rocket jets, right? It's the rocket jets that's on top of where the TTA is. That's the weenie that draws you to the back of Tomorrowland. For Disneyland fans, they ruin that by putting the Astro Orbiter right in the front. The castle is the weenie that kind of sucks you into the Fantasyland, and in, I guess, the old days, before Cinderella, before this thing that they've got going there now, you used to be able to look through the castle door, and you would be able to see the merry-go-round, and that would pull you in that direction. At Walt Disney World, when you look into Liberty Square and over the bridge, you should be able to see the paddle wheeler. That's the weenie there. And when you look into Adventureland, although you see the entrance gateway, you don't actually see a structure that draws you to it. And the idea there is there wouldn't be much of an adventure if you can see where you're going now, is it?
Because you do see sort of a curved path off to your right? You kind of go around the Dole Whip place, yeah.
But it doesn't give you that same kind of hard concrete, this is where I'm aiming, because it wants to leave a little bit of a mystery and you want to turn that corner. There are shopping mall designers that when they design shopping malls, the old days of enclosed shopping malls, you put big store on one end, big store at the other, and you enclose all the little stores in between. In modern shopping, you have a lot of deflected views where corners sort of turn, and it kind of compels you to walk a little bit further to see what's just around that corner. So we started to see, once again, theme park design really influencing the real world. Also notice, too, on Main Street USA, there are no 90-degree doors. All the doors are always angled at the streets because, as Walt once said, only military people turn 90 degrees, regular people cut corners.
That's a great quote.
That's nice.
What are some... Matt, you and I, Len, we've both got the same...
We're just excited.
Yeah,
we
very
have the same
excited.
Timing tonight.
Urban planning gets us excited.
It's my living.
So let's move on to Epcot.
Epcot, what I was really taken by there is that you have, of course, the ultimate view terminus. When you're standing at the edge of the lagoon and you're looking at all the worlds around the lagoon, it's absolutely beautiful. What I was troubled with on my last visit is I think that the concept of the ultimate weenie, the Spaceship Earth, this globe that's floating, that's now sort of got this weird giant mouse hand next to it, which completely ruins the scale of it. The original concept there, from what I've read through from John Hench and others, who's like the Imagineer of 60 years, is that the idea was you went through the gateway, you had a grand open, very futuristic plaza, and that instead of the weenie drawing you towards it, it made you want to walk underneath it and experience going underneath the globe that's there. Now with the Leave a Legacy thing...
the mausoleum?
Yeah, that was my take on it too. Is it's like 100 years from now when the world blows up, they're going to look at this thing. Are these people all buried underneath here? And what it did is the combination of the Leave a Legacy and the big hand. And the Epcot sign is it completely devalues the scale. For those who like Frank Lloyd Wright houses, for those who like Wilderness Lodge or Animal Kingdom Lodge, all these hotels take advantage, or all these places take advantage of the use of scale to create a sense of place. And that is that you walk through the main lobby, let's say of Animal Kingdom Lodge, the first ceiling's very, very low, and that by the time you walk up and you see the big grand lobby, it's very impressive. Frank Lloyd Wright did this a lot with houses, had a small scale entry and then a big living room area. And Epcot did the same thing where the show buildings on the side and Spaceship Earth made the forecourt without Leave a Legacy very intimate, and then you walk underneath this and it's a very big open piece of urbanism to it. And that's kind of spoiled because now you're kind of sort of getting around the tombs in order to get to wherever you have to go.
We're a Disney marketer's dream, I swear. And the big. So let me ask this question on the Animal Kingdom Lodge. I think it's structurally it's fairly similar to the Wilderness Lodge, right?
Yeah, it's the same architect, yes. And Grand California, same architect.
Yeah, I mean, and they're roughly speaking the same layout, right?
Yeah. Actually, of all of them, from what I can tell, the Animal Kingdom Lodge is by far the simplest of the three hotels.
So, but it has that sort of grand, sort of soaring lobby that the Grand Floridian has as well too. What's that space? By the way, we have time for this one more question. So, what are they trying to do with the big spaces there? Is that like imposing lobby view? Is it supposed to
make you look up with your mouth dropped open and going, "Wow, this is not an Embassy Express, is it? This is a real. This is not an Embassy Suites that I'm in. This is a statement." And I think that became. I think the Grand Floridian was the first of the hotels to have such a grand entry, and now it's a signature element of all the deluxe Disney resorts. I think I can't even think of one anymore that doesn't have some sort of a grand public space like that was built since the Grand Floridian. It's very much their signature statement.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that because whenever I go into Scopa Towers, the Pop Century, I immediately think I'm not in an Embassy Suites.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a temple more.
Yeah, it's more like sacred ground.
I like Scopa Towers is 3 stories tall?
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah, but it's bigger than that in our hearts.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Oh, that's good.
And there's a picture of him in every room.
I heard about that while I was there.
I told you I'm gonna put an obelisk. We should like late at night. If we could pour some quick drying concrete, we could do a little statue of Scopa.
But I'll leave you with one final thought that should either be very inspirational or, for many people, very, very scary, is that the impact of these theme parks on people's expectations of the built environment in which they exist has raised the bar so high that we're now starting to develop zoning-type ordinances that, in a sense, create theme parks in real cities. It's called form-based coding, where the only thing that you're focused on is what you see from the street, and you don't really care what the uses are behind it, and that's a big change of thinking. And I personally believe that was very much influenced by people's expectations about going to Disney World every couple of years or so.
Well, Sam, thanks for coming on the show. It was great to have you. We're definitely going to have you back just because we only got through a park and a half, and really, we didn't really get through the park. We just kind of skimmed through it. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure.
And that's it for us today. This has been episode number 108 of Walt Disney World Today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions@wdwtoday.com. For Len Teston, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, and Sam Genoway, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.